Hooray, we're live. Okay. Hi. This is Micah, and welcome to our Saturday live stream. Happy Saturday to you. Yeah. So we're just gonna keep on working on this hyena. I don't have a specific plan for today. I'm hoping that we can really kind of finish filling out all the forms, but I think that might be a little bit too optimistic. But I'm hoping to get some of this mouth resolved, figure out what I want to do about the bottom jaw, figure out the ears, and then probably futz around with this some more because that's what I like doing, and smooth this out. Ideally, though it's unlikely, ideally I would like to get everything ready for TechStream, but I don't think that that's going to happen this week. It's probably going to be next week. So let's dive in. I did get some more references today. I could not find any references of hyena ears without hair. So I'm looking at cat ears, and I found a picture of a fennec fox. And I need to correct myself because I said that this was called the nuchal fold, this little fold pocket right here. It's actually called Henry's pocket. The nuchal fold is a little fold that happens at the back of the neck when you're developing in utero. So that was an anatomy lesson for me. Anyway, we're gonna jump in. Hopefully my clay is warm. Now, I keep on talking about after the stream, like I'm not happy with this mouth and I feel like the jaw is too big, but when I look at it in real life, it doesn't really bother me that much. Maybe I can move this back just a smidge, the teeth. Also, I'm noticing right now, looking at it, that the teeth are a little bit cockeyed. So, let's fix that before we get too far. I'm just going to slice these off. Now, I have this spatula tool. I've talked about it before. This is a makeup spatula, but this one's really stiff. It works really great as a cutting tool. So I think if I put it right there, that might actually solve all the problems I've been having. Take out some of this extra bulk so I can get it flat. Just my usual disclaimer. If you hear my dogs barking or my kids stomping, that's to be expected. Sorry, can't do much about it. Although I feel like the world in general, since the pandemic's been a thing and everybody's doing video conferencing, I feel like the world in general has gotten a little bit more accepting about, you know, interruptions on video and stuff. So the nice thing with slicing it off is I can kind of just fiddle around with it and see where I want it to go. And I do think that that actually looks a lot better. So it was over here. I'm moving it back about half an inch. And because I want this to be pretty sturdy, I'm going to actually use my torch to heat up both sides to smush the clay together. And you can see it's smushing. That's a technical term. Yeah, that looks much better. And if you are watching and you want to ask me anything, I do have the chat window open, which I believe is working. Oh, just open another tab. I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, if you say something, I should be able to see it. Let me try. I put it in a high. Okay. I can't type, but I can probably respond if I see it. Now, let's ease up on the dramatic lighting a little bit. Right now I'm just trying to check to see if it's still cocked to the side. It looks like it might be a little bit, but not too bad. So I gotta find my mouth references. I found this great reference. That is probably as close as I'm going to find to this expression as is possible. With the exception that his mouth isn't open, it's got that kind of sneer. In general, this side is just higher. And it's because I haven't really worked on the bottom teeth over here. I've worked on them a little bit on this side, but not on this side at all. I still got to get that tongue in there. So yeah, I think that getting this ready for texturing at this point is probably a little too optimistic. We're going to probably have at least one more week of knocking out these secondary, and I guess in some cases primary forms. Now most of the mouths I'm looking at, looks like they actually come to more of a point, whereas I have more of a square mouth right now. It actually seems to not, I got it coming out way too far here. This is what I'm talking about with needing to work on the primary forms. And honestly, I think it's just because like I'm more familiar with like say bear anatomy, and I'm trying to pull that into it subconsciously. Because bears have more of a square kind of mouth. I mean, so do humans, so I guess I could make the argument that since it's a gnoll, I'm bringing some of that human anatomy in, but this time it's really not intentional. I'm just kind of trying to define this bottom jaw a little bit. I think this is going to involve me putting in a little bit of neck wrinkles, but I'm okay with that. Maybe not neck wrinkles, like around the mouth. I don't know. We'll see how I feel about that. I might change that later. It would help if I knew how much I had before I hit the buck. I think I got a little ways to go. I don't want to go too thin because you still got to fit a human head in here. And my sculpting buck, though I love it, it's still on a little bit on the smaller side. It's like a 23-inch head. Now I think I just made it look more bear-like. I'm pulling that bottom lip down a little bit too far. Because like bears, like when they like roar, their lips kind of like they go everywhere. These guys seem like they're more pointed, and that the bottom lip doesn't really move at all. That's what I'm looking at in the pictures. Like, it would probably help if I looked up some videos. Also, I'm noticing that these bottom front teeth actually come out a bit more too. I got mine set a little bit too far back, so it's actually more like that. When I say, like, you know, I got to deal with some of these shapes, this is what I'm talking about. Like, is looking at it closely and seeing where I need to make modifications. Definitely need to bring this in a bit. Still got this weird lip flap thing though, and I still want to leave that in. Nope, my stream, I can't tell if I'm still on camera. Sorry. There we go. Sorry. Hopefully I didn't get off too far. Weird little lip flip over here. I can tell already it's way too high. That's okay. Cross that bridge in a minute. I almost think that I'm making these too big. They're like, it's kind of like cat teeth. Like their middle teeth are really teeny tiny. I mean, I think I'm going to kind of split the difference between that and human teeth, because I think that teeth are one area where you can really make a creature look creepy, like by just switching up what's expected. I keep on thinking about, like, Smile Dog. For those of you who are not familiar with Smile Dog, it's an internet creepypasta meme from probably like 10 years ago. I don't know. I was telling my kid about it because he wants, with Halloween having just passed, he wanted some scary stories. So and I love creepypasta, so I was telling him some creepypastas. You know, we were talking about Smile Dog, and he was scared to look at a picture of it because he didn't want to go crazy, like the lady in the story. But then later he overcame his fear and asked to see a picture. But yeah, so Smile Dog, like, Smile Dog is a grainy picture of a Siberian Husky, which are known for being smiley dogs, but it has human teeth. And it just is very disconcerting. I'm kind of moving these teeth back a little bit to fit in everything, because he's got these complicated molars back here. Canine molars usually, they're not like, you know, they're not meant for chewing. They're still meant for cutting. So, I know this guy's not canine, but bear with me for a minute. So they still are very sharp and pointed. So I'm kind of trying to bring those shapes in there. But then he's got this little guy, right? Well, it's not little because it's a hyena and their bones are meant for crunching. I want to fit this other tooth right here, which is kind of in a weird position. Here's the reference I'm looking at. Sorry, I'll show you. So, like, this tooth is right here. I'm trying to make that tooth. And then this little other tooth right here. And then that weird flap, and then the canines. So there's where that other tooth is. And you could, like, if you wanted to, sculpt this all separate and then just patch it in after you've, cast the mask so that you don't have to worry about casting the teeth. But I really like to make my casting as simple as possible. Partially because I can make molds, but I don't like making molds. So I don't want to have to make more complicated molds. The other thing to think about is that these other teeth are probably going to incise over. Let me find my skull picture. This is why anatomy is important. I can look at it and kind of see how they fit together. It looks like, yeah, these teeth are going to kind of fit over these teeth, so it's going to get that scissors action. So it would make sense for this one to be a little further out than this one. Although I would say that this tooth actually... No, that's good. I was going to say I think he's a little too far, but not too bad. Bring it in just a smidge. Not a lot. And in this case, I am mostly working on one side, and then I'm just going to tackle the other side and make it symmetrical. I wouldn't advise that for, like, most of your sculpting, but it'll work for this. And then I'm just adding in some mouth texture on the bottom, which might get obscured later by the tongue, but it's there for now. I don't know how I'm going to do the tongue. I might do the tongue separately. It would make more sense to do it as part of it, though, just because, again, easier, less molds. But also, it might make it easier to actually cast the teeth if there's like an extra bulky thing in there. I'm just going to put in some gums real quick. Maybe some definition to the teeth. And all this can be kicked up in paint afterwards too, which will make it look a little bit nicer. Although, like I said before, like I try to make my things somewhat easier to paint. So I want all that definition to be there to start with. So like if you're painting in, the teeth lines, you can see where the gum ends and the tooth begins. It makes it a lot easier for paint. He's got a very distinct sort of cut in here with the gums, or the gum and the lip. Well, they do attach, so there's some like stringy bits, which will be fun to sculpt in. But for right now, I'll just kind of gesture them in. And this guy is right here. And the funny thing, well, not funny, but like one thing I really like about teeth and gums is that they're two very different textures. You know, your teeth are hard, they're enamel. They're essentially bone, although a different type of bone, I guess, than your regular bones. But they're just a very different substance than the gums. But I'm sculpting everything out of the same material, so it's challenging to try and indicate those two, you know, the subtlety between what is soft and what is hard, and how to do that. Especially something like this where both things are wet, so they're both going to be kind of shiny. I like a challenge. I like to think about that kind of stuff. Like how do you communicate that visually? I do wish I were a little bit more ambidextrous. I try to kind of push myself to sculpt with both hands, at least in the beginning for sure. But it only goes so far. Now obviously at this point, like, I'm not really going to be nailing the differences between the teeth and the gums because we're still very much in the roughing it out stage. That's going to come more in the texture stage, but it's still something to be thinking about. I still feel like this is a little too far out. I'll put that back in a minute. Now, in moving the mouth around and trying to figure this stuff out, I got to just be careful that I still keep the mouth centered, because I can tell right now that that's something I'm already. Because this is why you don't want to do things at two different times, because I've already nailed in a lot of this detail. I don't want to have to shift the whole thing and then have to scrape it out. That's why I always say, like, try to nail those before you start getting too precious about it. I'll still do it. It'll just hurt more. Hurt my feelings. So yeah, I still got a lot of bulk over here. It's not that asymmetrical. This tooth is wrong though. I got that stuck in there. Oops, that was the gum line that I started to put in. So right now I have this tooth too far forward. That's where I'm running into problems. The other problem that I'm seeing is that I have these teeth are kind of pointing inward and these are pointing outward, and they should both be obviously pointing in the same direction. And these are still a little too bulky too. And that's the thing, when you first block everything in, everything's too bulky. It just is. It's because the clay's soft, you're trying to, you know, mush it around. You have to wait for it to cool before you can really get into that, you know, the technical stuff. Still kind of unsure about this bottom jaw, like if I like the divot or not. It might make more sense to have it look a little bit bear-like, just from a wearing perspective. Also, like the part that I'm sculpting on right now under this chin, you're never going to see it anyway, unless you're like, you know, turning the mask, but it's not really in a high visibility area. I do feel better having moved those teeth, though. I'll say that. Hi. Sorry, my partner's here and making faces at me. Usually he likes to stop in and scare me, which is highly effective because I'm incredibly jumpy. And shockingly, he didn't get me that time. So, I don't know if you guys can see this from the side, but I'm trying to just kind of figure out that profile. Like, again, I'm saying like this part right here is what's giving me trouble right now. And the cutoff line is probably going to be about here. So I'm going to change that. Or from this side, like it's right here. It's like, I can't figure out if I want to make that tighter or not. You know, I'm just settling for making it symmetrical, I guess. Like I said, it's not a high visibility area. And a little bit of bulk back in. I know I said I was taking it out, but I'm putting it back in a little bit. Because overall, the hyena's jaw is like a triangle. And I think I was narrowing it down too much, which puts it more in the dog territory, or like a fox maybe. On the plus side, this also gives a little bit more room inside the mask for the wearer. Yeah, I like that better. It's a back and forth. Always. Fill it in a little bit. And then I gotta stop overthinking it. Easier said than done. When I scrape off clay like this, it gives me lots of little clay pieces. I usually just ball them up and rework them instead of getting out new clay. I try to keep my bench, like usually between sessions I scrape it down so that it is clean, so you're not getting dirt in your clay. But I try to reuse my clay as much as possible. I'm not rich, and clay can get expensive very fast. So unless it's got like some additive in it that's like gonna make it, like even this stuff, it has doliamine in it. I've used this clay before. I'm reusing it. So I still need to be careful when I mold it regardless, but I'd still rather reuse it than throw it away. So wasteful, throw it away in my opinion. I mean, when you demold a sculpture, you do tend to lose a certain amount of clay regardless. So you are losing clay even if you're trying to save it. But I try to save it as much as possible. Even with the wet clay, the water soluble stuff, I do like to reuse it if I can. It's a little bit harder because it does tend to dry out. Okay, now this is where I kind of try to feel it. Sometimes I'll even close my eyes just so that I can better sort of tap into my touch. But you can feel any asymmetries or where things are uneven. Like I noticed this was too far forward on this side. I also have an irrational fear of going blind, and I figure if I do this enough, then maybe I can continue to sculpt when I'm blind, if that ever should happen. I have a lot of irrational fears. I don't usually talk about them all that much, but I know I've talked about my irrational fear of decapitation too. But that is 100% from watching that scene in The Omen. And the scene in Return to Oz. God, that movie's terrifying. One thing I like about this tool is, like, it does leave pretty drastic marks on your sculpture, but in a way like if you do it enough in different directions, it's going to totally smooth out your piece. Which is very counterintuitive, and that's why I resisted this tool for so long. But it really is the best tool. And I get mine from kenstools.com. And Ken is a total sweetheart. If you ever get the chance to meet him, he's just such a wonderful person. And he's been in the industry, the movie making industry and special effects industry for a very long time, and he knows a lot of stuff. And he's just one of the most kind and generous people I've met. But yeah, I usually get my tools from him, not just because, I adore him, but also because he makes a really good tool. And they're tough, and they put up with the crap I put them through. And they're very, what's the word I'm looking for? Affordable for what they are, for how tough they are. And it saved me a lot of time with making it. That being said, if you wanted to make this tool, this is a jeweler's saw, I believe, that's been seated into a brass pipe. And I don't know, maybe someday I could go over how to make those. But And then one thing I always do, and this is when you get the tool fresh from Ken or wherever you get it from, if you make it yourself, whatever, the teeth on the saw blade are very sharp. They're very pointy. And that's fine if that's what you like. I don't. I like to, I always file mine down. I have a video on my YouTube channel of you just take a Dremel tool to it and just take down those teeth so that I'm barely leaving any marks here. Those marks would be a lot deeper if I were using it fresh. Okay, time to get that little tooth in. It's weird, it makes more sense on this side than it does on this side, even though it's the same damn tooth. It's almost like it's coming from the outside in. Maybe that's what I'm struggling with. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger and then whittle it down. That's often my tactic here. And again, this one's it's just too far forward. Take my little wire tool that I made, just kind of smooth all that down. The wire tool has a nice added, I guess, feature of when you use it, it kind of scrapes the clay into itself, so it does make it a little bit stronger. Like we talk about melting the clay to get it to stick, well, this kind of forces the clay, to mush it up on itself. A bit more clay back there. It's kind of like a way of blending them together. I might, when I get a little further along here, I might put the tongue in and then kind of blend it down. In the back, at least. Okay, time to figure these out now. Teeth are weird. The way they overlap, kind of. Gotta kind of always work your way around them. They always fit together. I don't know, they're strange. And like I said, these are not 100% perfect hyena teeth. Trying to hit the major notes like the fact that like I'm looking at this tooth here. It's got two ridges. You know, again, that bite strength thing. This tooth only has one, but it kind of cuts in and suggests another one. That maybe. And these teeth on the top, man, those are terrifying. Where's my skull pick? There it is. Okay, so the way their teeth work is they have this itty bitty tooth right here, which I believe I talked about last week when I put it in. And then they got the next tooth is bigger, but not huge. I need a little bit more definition between that and the itty bitty one. And then they got this guy, which is, I think, their primary chomper. That's the technical name, primary chomper. And then further back, they got more molars, but I don't actually think you'd really see those on this, but maybe I'll put a suggestion of one in. A lot of that would be covered up by the gums. Or the lips, rather. Just like in humans, you know, your teeth go back a lot farther than you see them. I'm noticing this one actually tilts backward a little bit. You can tell so much about an animal from its teeth. And I'm not even a biologist, like, I'm sure biologists can tell a lot more. But you can tell, like, their hunting style, like I said, these guys, like, they have huge teeth because they break bones with them. It's just fascinating. Science and art overlap so much, and I find that really cool. When I was in grad school, I had a person from outside the art school interview me for because I'd won some award, and they needed a thing for the campus newsletter. So she was interviewing me about my art school progress and like what I was doing for my work. And I said something about my research. And she said, "You don't do research, you're an artist." And I said, "I do all sorts of research." And she was like, "Yeah, but not real research." And I'm like, "No, real, what's the difference between real research and not real research?" It was just, anyway, I went and told the chair of my committee that afterwards, and she was so offended on my behalf. People poo-poo the arts, but they've made a lot of contributions. I think a lot of artists are like me in that, like, you sort of have like this endless thirst for knowledge. And so you do things that, you know, okay, well, yeah, I want to make an accurate, you know, Gnoll, so I got to research hyenas, obviously. And you just find out a lot of random facts about stuff. That's what I love about art. I kind of wonder, I don't know, because I'm not an actor, and I don't know a ton of actors, but I always wonder if it's the same for actors, like when they're researching for a role. Like they must have a ton of different random bits of knowledge. I'm just kind of moving these teeth back a little bit because this one, like I have a little bit too close to the canine, and I'm trying to move it into a more better position. Is that a word? Now I'm all jumpy because I'm worried my partner's sneaking up on me. Keep seeing things out of the corner of my eye. My old dog used to chase him when he was sneaking up on me and bark at him so that I'd be alerted. But unfortunately that dog passed away and now I'm vulnerable. Vulnerable to scare attacks. Plus my kid thinks it's hilarious too. So I got everyone scaring me. There, those are looking like chompers. Kind of whittled that one down a little bit too far, so I'm bulking it up a little. Okay, so now I got those pretty, I mean, I can sit and whittle away at them, but I really should try and bring the other side up to speed. Because even this canine's not where it should be. Move my head. Hopefully you guys can see. So two things I'm noticing with this other canine is that one, it's too far forward and it's too far back, so it's just all around too bulky. I need my guitar string tool. I'm going to whittle some off of here. Not a lot. Just enough. Their front teeth almost have this sort of, some of them anyway, seem to have some of this like almost V shape to it, like this, where it comes down here. And then down here. I kind of want to bring that in a little bit. The teeth are something that like can be incredibly frustrating. That's why I like to work on them a little bit at a time, because if I try to do it all at once, I'll just end up, you know, having a meltdown. But if I do it a little bit at a time, a little bit here, a little bit there, eventually it'll start to come together, and I won't lose my mind in the process. So one thing I'm noticing about these, I don't know which teeth these are. Incisors? I'm sorry, I don't know my teeth. The ones next to the canines that are in the front. I'm noticing that they kind of they don't just point straight down, they point at an angle, which to me indicates that these teeth are probably to help catch prey. I don't know if that's accurate, but usually when teeth are at an angle like that, it's because it hooks into the prey and then it's harder for it to get loose. And the reason I talk about this stuff is because, like, if you're ever designing creatures, it's important to know why certain things function the way they do. So, like, if you're making a dragon, does it hunt fish? Does it hunt, red meat? Does it hunt, birds? It's all going to change the way that its anatomy looks. Now, I'm seeing right here that this guy is way too far forward. Because technically, I need a gap between these two teeth where this tooth will fit in. Because they kind of lock that way. That being said, this jaw is probably never gonna, I guess if someone wanted to, they could get this mask and they could cut it apart and try to make it a hinged jaw, but I'm not really intending it that way. I have a lot of respect for hinge jaw mask makers. That's a whole another level of engineering. That being said, I'm going to try, I think, soon maybe. I just kind of want to play around with it and see if it's something I can do. I wanted to try sculpting the skull mask digitally so I could see if I could make it hinge. Because I haven't really printed anything recently, and it kind of bugs me that my printer's not going, because the whole idea behind the printer for me was that the printer's doing work while I'm doing work, so we're getting twice as much work. In an ideal world, I guess. This is just a smidge too long. There needs to be more hours in the day. So many things I want to do, just not enough time. Just kind of redefining this gum. Okay, I'm going to use my W21, just kind of, because remember I said these teeth were a little bit then kind of arched up, so the gum line should go like that. So ideally these teeth are going to be higher. That makes sense. And I'm going to obliterate this later, so I don't want to get too hung up on it. Just adding a little bit back into the gum, pulling off that Poe hair. Let's see, clay tool. Maybe not the clay tool. Maybe my spatula? I never used a spatula as a sculpting tool until I did a patchwork out of Immortal. And I was like, wow, this is really versatile. Immortal, you know, and generally in my time in California really kind of opened my eyes to a lot of new sculpture techniques and how to do things. I will forever be grateful for that. Have to be careful when I'm molding because there's going to want to be bubbles trapped in here. So I got to make sure that first coat of silicone that I put on this, it really gets in these gaps. I'm getting a little too persnickety right now. I need to back off a little. It's easy. I mean, I think it is for a lot of sculptors where you just kind of like, ooh, I want to see that detail. So you start sculpting it, but it is too soon to really be putting in that level of detail. And the reason I say that is just because I'm gonna have to go over this area again probably, and it's gonna get messed up. I always allow myself to have a little bit of like detail time where like I'll start to really pull things out, but that's just, you know, for my own satisfaction. But then I try to pull it back a little. Sorry, futzing around with some 99. Like I said, just doing that for my own, wanting to see it looking more finished. But knowing damn well that I'm going to have to go in here and probably change some of this stuff. This tool is one of my favorite tools. I got this one from AMC Creatures on Etsy. And that artist that runs it makes puppets, so they have a lot of these really fine tools. And this one in particular is like, I think it's actually just a nail that's been sanded and then bent. But I use it as like a burnishing tool. I use it to cut away. It's very sharp. It's kind of a, it does everything for me. And I haven't seen it in the artist or the AMC Creatures Etsy shop in a while, so I don't know if they're still making it. So if I ever lose this tool, I'm going to be very upset. This is what I'm talking about. Like, I just realized I carved away too much of that tooth, so now I gotta put it back in, which means I'm gonna gum up these gums. All right, I'll stop futzing with that. This should be cool enough now to go back to working on. Now, these teeth are gonna be ridiculously tiny. All right. Time's at 3 o'clock. I gotta wrap this one up by 4. Because my kid needs some of the equipment. I feel like we have unprecedented levels of sharing of technology because of the pandemic. Technology and bandwidth. One thing I do want to start doing before I get too far is I do want to start to like even out the top of the mouth so that I don't have to deal with it after I've refined all the teeth. And again, I'm kind of fudging it on the top of the mouth. Like, obviously I don't have the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't have the space to really get in there and make it as carved in as it would be in real life. Almost like this goes in like that. And this goes more depressed like that. Again, should not be focusing on this, but it's like a problem that needs to be solved. It's hard to tell too if this hyena seems to have some flattened teeth. Like they're worn down a little bit. So I don't know how pointy. Let me look around a little bit. I don't know how pointy these incisors are. Like I know when I look at my dog's teeth, like they have like, it's almost like a three-pronged incisor. But this guy looks like they're really kind of filed, dulled. See, that's why I said I didn't want to get too far into it. There we go. And also just making sure those teeth are centered. These are too recessed now. It's always something. And in this case, I am making the teeth a little bit thicker this way because of molding. I wanted to pull out of the mold properly and not get squished when I put it in the mother mold. Make sure I got that center line. I'm not losing that. It's very easy to get kind of myopic when you're working on detail stuff and get everything off center. All right, I think I'm going to leave that alone. I say that, but I know I'm going to come right back to it. At some point, I'm going to, pop this thing off of the stand and really get in here and smooth everything out with the gums. Excuse me for a second. All right. See, what did I say? Something like all 30 seconds. All right. Let's get this guy a little bit better. Okay, so this is the little tooth, which is not little enough. This is the next tooth, which is a medium tooth. And then after is the big chomper, which is not very visible. It should be more visible. Now this, side of the mouth, since it is more, not relaxed, but, well, yeah, I guess it is more relaxed. You're going to have a little bit more of that skin flap coming across the tooth. And by skin flap, I mean lip. Sorry. So it's not going to be as visible. Although this one should probably also be smaller. Just pinching off a little bit of clay. It's looking symmetrical. Push that in there. It just needs a little bit more lip on this side. Right now I'm just softening up that more lip that I put in. I don't want it to be too dramatic. Soften up these teeth too. I kind of feel like the teeth are a little bit too far in. Maybe they just need to be pushed outward a little bit. Because I was holding I always have a ball of clay in my hand to keep it soft for when I need it to add it to the sculpture. But because of that, this clay is very soft, and it's not, I'm not able to carve against it like I would normally. There's going to be a lot of finessing of these teeth later. It's kind of boring to watch, but this might be something. I've been thinking about these live streams and like the idea of going from start to finish, but right now we're heading into the part where the detailing gets really strenuous and tedious, and so I'm thinking that I'd like to still keep doing the live streams, but since the detailing part can take way longer, like than we've spent on it so far, in the interest of not having boring live sculpting, I might do some of that off camera. Because a lot of it's just repetitive, and so I can hit the major points on camera and talk about what I'm doing, but then do actually all the labor off camera. Just in the interest of getting the sculpture done this year. Also, when I sculpt the detail stuff, I tend to get like right up in there, and you can't see anything anyway. Kind of like on a cooking show. You know, they put it in the oven and they pull the finished one out. That's what I'll do with the detailing. I am going to put more skin wrinkles in though, so I'll probably do that during the live stream. Like bigger wrinkles, like I did over here. I want to add some more nuance over on this side. But maybe futzing around with the teeth. I don't know. I might take some of that off. Like I said, it's just a lot of back and forth. Like I just realized that like I lost a lot of gum over here when I was pushing things around, so I'm just adding some puffiness back in to the gums. And working up to creating that softness that I was talking about earlier with that I want the gums to look soft and the teeth to look hard. And part of that's just going to be in the shape of things. And I tend to make the gums a little bit puffier than they would be naturally. So I guess, you know, this guy's got gingivitis. But I think it reads better. There's some dentist watching this probably going, oh my god, that's so wrong. Everything's wrong. Sorry, fictional dentist. I'll keep picking at these in our time we have left before my kid needs my stuff. I will say, like, I very much enjoy doing these live streams, and if you're a Patreon of mine, you've probably noticed that I'm very scatterbrained when it comes to my projects. Like, I start a lot of projects and then I kind of peter out on them. And I like that this live stream is like giving me the time and a scheduled set time to work on something. And like I know what I'm gonna do. I only have a couple hours, so I got to get it done. And like I come in and I get the job done. And I feel like I want to thank my Patreon supporters because that's been very healthy for me. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate having to focus on something. We've been under stay-at-home orders for the most part since mid-March, and I feel like that really upended any sense of scheduling or normalcy that I had. And I think that these sessions really help a lot to give me that back. And who knows, maybe if my kid ends up ever going back to school, we can start doing it during the week too. Though it's hard to see a future in which that's going to happen. Not to be a negative Nancy. But yeah, I don't know. I hope you all are hanging in there. Especially, I know I have some international people under Patreon supporters, but especially the American group, because wow, what a mess. Told you I ended up futzing around with this. I just can't help myself. Now, normally, if I were like at Immortal at this point, I would delimamine my sculpture, meaning that I would soak this thing with delimamine, and it softens up the clay. and then I'd brush it out to get rid of a lot of the tool marks. Sometimes I would do 2 delaminine sessions. Since I know that I'm going to be molding this one in silicone instead of doing a hard mold, I do not want to delaminate it if I can. So I'm trying to avoid that. It might not work out that way though. I don't know. We'll see. The other thing is that the delaminate, it does soften up the clay significantly, so it does tend to make it so you lose some detail because it mushes it up. So like all these little subtle notes that I have that I'm creating like around here, like I would probably lose that. And on some level that's fine, I think, but I kind of don't want to lose it. I kind of want to, you know, I worked hard to get all these little notes. I want to keep them. So that's why I've been using the alcohol as a solvent. Because, oh no! Oh no! My tool just broke. Ugh. I probably have another one somewhere. But, oh well. For me, with these tools, like I use the smaller end more than the larger end, but the larger end always breaks first because it's just, you can't press as hard. Ah, bummer. I'll have to see if I have more. So I usually have backup tools, but I may not have one on this one. Maybe putting in a call with Ken soon. Really cannot say enough nice things about him, though. He really is the sweetest. I got to know him because we'd been kind of like chit-chatting on Instagram, and I was supposed to help Booth with my friends who were working at a place, well, it was like a co-op called Figment Foundry, which is, I don't believe it functional anymore. Unfortunately, they had to shut down just because they couldn't California's expensive, you know, they couldn't afford to keep the shop open. Anyway, still friends with them though, and they still do awesome work. But I was supposed to booth with them at Monsterpalooza one year, and I was very much looking forward to it, and they usually let me sell a little bit at their booth. And then it kind of fell through at the last minute because one of them, it's a couple, a couple founded it, but it's actually a whole bunch of people, but the couple that founded it, the guy got sick, and they weren't going to be able to make it to Monsterpalooza that year, so they're like, oh, we can't do it. And I'm like, ah, I like boothing. I like that it gives me a safe way. I have a lot of social anxiety, I'll be honest, and when I'm at a convention like that, it really does help me to have a booth in between me and the people I'm talking with. Not because I'm actually like afraid or anything. It's just that like it just helps me to like have some place to put my hands and something to talk about. And you know, I have a lot of people who want to meet up with me, and it's like, hey, I'll be here. You can find me. And because like Monsterpalooza especially, there's a lot of people I want to see there. It's kind of like homecoming, like, you know, or coming home rather. So it helps if I have a place to stand. So I was super bummed that I couldn't do it with my friends. And anyway, I saw that Ken had a booth, and I'm like, damn, I always love Ken Tools, and he's such a sweetheart and awesome person. So I reached out to him, and I was like, hey, dude, like I was supposed to booth with my friends, and they can't do it anymore. And anyway, I was wondering if like I could come and sit at your booth, and like if you wouldn't mind if I sold some stuff, and I'll sculpt with your tools while I'm sitting there, and then it can show people what they can do. And you know, it's a good way to show off your stuff. And he was like, yeah, sure. I thought for sure he was just gonna be like, ah, no, that's okay, thanks. But no, he was all about it. He thought it was really gonna be fun. So, oh god, that was like Monsterpalooza, 2015, 16, somewhere like that, in the before times. And anyway, I ended up working at his booth for the like 2 or 3 days out of the convention, and just I sculpted this like dinosaur man hybrid mask out of wet clay, and it was a lot of fun. And people found me, and I got to do stuff, and got to show off stuff, and sell things too, and good times. But yeah, that's how I met Ken, and he's been so awesome. I can't remember which shops he used to work for, but he's worked at a bunch of shops, and he's worked on a lot of more older stuff now, I guess. He still does a lot of work, but I don't think he actually works for a shop anymore, because he does this whole thing with his tools. But yeah, if you ever connect with him, he's just a really wonderful person. So that's why I always give him shout outs. Not only do I love his tools, but he's a really cool guy. I like this tool too. This one's from Sculpey. You can get a 3-pack of these. They have these nice ball ends, but I love this middle-sized ball end tool. It's just a metal ball. And so often with nostrils, it's like the perfect size. So like I need to smooth out all those tool marks. So I can just do that. Bam, done. They have rubber tools on the end too, but I tend to, they break down after a while because of the solvents I use, so I don't really use them so much. Just curious what that was. Kind of brush out some of those marks. Usually when I get down to the guitar string tool, the marks are pretty easy to brush out with a paintbrush and some rubbing alcohol. And the rubbing alcohol does soften up the Chavant too. Not as badly as the Delimamine. And it does flash off too. So, versus the Delimamine, I think tends to stick around for a while. I don't think that he's got that much of a point to the nose. No, he does not. I gotta take that out. So I put in this nice little V here, but there's not really any V there. So let's just take that out. And although it does have a little bit of a cleft here, it's not huge. I often use this tool to burnish too. It's a pretty good precision tool. So when I say burnishing, like that's what I'm doing right now. It's just kind of using it to rub out some of those tool marks. There we go. I still haven't put in the whisker holes on this side too. Not that I really need to. I'm not keeping them to actually put whiskers in. I mean, I might have to. I don't know. I might, but that's not my intention with it. It's more that I just want them there for the texture. Take that one out, put in the big one. I think these are too far forward. Yeah, I also got to put one in here. There we go. I just want to keep going again. Sorry, I always feel like with this one, like I start to hit my groove right about an hour and a half in. And I'm like, yeah, forever. I'm just going to keep working on it. I think after this sculpture, what I might do is like just start having it where, like I said, it's just like a regular, like I just live stream whatever I'm working on at that time. I don't know if I'm going to keep it to an exclusive live stream sculpture. If anyone has any feedback about that or what they would like to see, let me know. So I'll certainly take that into account. But no matter what I'm working on, I can just talk about what I'm working on. Oh, I'm so mad about that. Let's see if I have another tool. Let's see, I have a fine point one, but that's not going to work. A lot of dental picks. Right now I'm looking through my super duper backup tool container. Ooh, there might be one other place. Which tools are these? No. And then I got my primary tool container, which is just here, I'll show you guys. It's just a toolkit. This is what I used to work with when I was at Immortal, because I didn't like to leave my tools there because I was often sculpting at home too, so I would just take them back and forth. But usually these are just my, I usually have one of each in this toolkit. Looks like I might have to contact Ken. Bummer. Oh well. Oh well. I guess I can use my flat one in the meantime. Just gonna moan and grumble about it. I have this one that I made. Let's see how that works. It's not as nice as Ken's. I'll say that. If you ever do want to make guitar string tools, though, I always say, like, just go to a guitar shop or call them ahead of time and just ask if they have any broken strings. You don't need them to be, you know, sound worthy. You just need them to have that texture. So a lot of times I get used guitar strings. This is a used guitar. This is a bass string. And it works just fine. You have a little bit less control over what you get because you kind of just get whatever they've been using to change out stuff. But if you don't want to buy guitar strings, that is an option. And I usually just explain what I'm using them for so that they don't think I'm a total weirdo. Or you could just play guitar. I also play guitar, but I'm pretty terrible at it. So I don't play all that much, obviously, because I suck. So I don't get better. But I don't break my strings very often either then. It's 3:47. Gotta start wrapping this up. I want to work on it more. I always say, like, oh, maybe I could do it on Sunday, like do an additional stream so I could work on it some more. But I don't know if I've talked about it, but I teach at UWM during the week, so I usually have to use Sunday for my lesson plans. Any leftover grading that I haven't done yet. You know, job stuff. Although I do like teaching quite a bit. Speaking of which, one of my Patreon supporters, who's very lovely, has requested that I put back up the teaching tier. So I'm still working on it. I want to change it up. He suggested having like individuals, like monthly assignments. So I think I'm going to try and do that. I'm just trying to figure out how to, you know, communicate that on Patreon. But I hope to release that tier by next month. So if that's something you're interested in, you know, reach out to me. Or if you want to do a teaching tier or like have that kind of level of communication, but want a different sort of teaching practice, like let me know. I mean, I have access to a lot of different curriculums, and I've written a lot of different curriculums. So there's stuff I can work with to get you what you need. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. I usually open up only like 2 slots, maybe 3 tops. So I don't have a ton of time to devote to it. You know, I can't take on a whole 30 students or anything like that. But and I want to give everybody individual attention. But hopefully I'll be releasing that on Patreon soon. And I always say this, but if there's ever anything you want to see on Patreon, or like, you know, some kind of content that you wish I had but I don't have, let me know. I mean, I will admit that I've slowed down a little bit on the tutorials since doing the live streams. That being said, I am working on editing one right now about clay. But if there's ever like a tutorial you want to see, or if there's ever content like I'm posting on maybe on Instagram and you're like, well, how did you do that? Let me know and I'll see if I can make a tutorial for it. I try to be fairly free with my techniques. There's some things I can't talk about, like I can't really talk about how we did things at Immortal because that's their trade secrets, but I try to be as free with most of my knowledge as I can, because I think that that's important. I think it's really cool to see advances being made by everyone because of sharing of knowledge. And it pushes me to be better too. Man, I could just sit and do this all day though. I'm just neatening everything up. Figuring out like some of these things, like I had this ridge right here is too harsh, so I'm trying to soften it up a little bit. I could just do that all day long though. It's like, I don't know, it's like spell crafting or something. I just feel like I'm doing magic. Bring this down a little bit too. They have this, it looks like the hyena I'm looking at right now has like this little fatty pad right here. Like it's those little moments that to me are just like, oh, my brain just releases serotonin. That's why if I could just sculpt all day, every day, I'd be a happy camper. I'm definitely at my happiest when I get my fingers in some clay. Which is why even though I love digital, and I love the ease of which you can do some things, it's just not the same as the tactile stuff. It's not a quality thing, it's just, you know, I guess a satisfaction thing. Finding all those little nuances and notes. I mean, I do that with my digital sculpting too, I guess. I'm just rambling here. Oh, that looks much better. Except for now that, well, I want that subtler. Oh, I keep on forgetting about my tool. Makes me sad. There we go. Overall, I'm feeling pretty happy with the direction this is going in, though. Alright. Well, I gotta stop so my kid can have my tablet and some of these cables. But I will for sure see you all on Saturday next weekend, and there's where we're leaving off. I might try and put some time in on getting these teeth a little bit more established so that you don't have to watch me fiddle around with that on camera. And then we can move into smoothing everything out, refining the ears a little bit more, and then I guess touching up on texturing. So thank you so much for joining in, and as always, thank you very much to my patrons for your support. I couldn't do it without you, and I very much appreciate it, and thank you. I hope that the rest of you, well, all of you, have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you all next week. Bye.